So this webinar is being hosted as a joint project between the Specialized Recruiting Group, and we've got a few representatives from Specialized Recruiting Group on the call, on the webinar. Do y'all mind introducing yourselves, just saying hello?
Well, I'll start. I'm Jean Boswell. I have the privilege of working with the team there. And so I am a remote, I work remotely. I worked with Express for 10 years prior to joining the group here I joined last September. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
It's
My
good to have you.
name is Josh Trammell, and I've been here for 3 years. And I work very closely. Me and Sarah both work in the accounting, finance, HR space. So see a lot of familiar faces and names on the screen. It's good to be here.
Sarah Niffen. Yes, I partner with Josh to help place accounting, finance, HR professionals in just short of 7 years here. So I'm excited about this
And finally, I'm Jacob Helmezi. I do IT, engineering, and manufacturing. Those are my lanes. And so I was at Express in 2001 and 2002 and took a little hiatus for a career experiment. And now I'm back. And so excited to be here.
It's good to have you. Good to have all of you. And my name is Kevin Johnson. And so the other half of the partnership here is Express Pros Training, which I head up. And we do all kinds of leadership development and training. We do executive development and training, mid-level managers, frontline supervisors. We do consulting. At the end of the day, we try to help leaders lead at a higher level. So we are bringing these series of webinars to our market, honestly, just to bring value. We're hearing from different HR leaders about their career, their journey, what they've learned in leadership, and how they're approaching HR leadership in 2026. So we are very thankful to have with us Holly Bishop, who I guess if they gave black belts in HR, Holly would definitely have a black belt. So Holly, thank you for being here with us, and I'll let you kind of just briefly introduce yourself before we dive into the quote unquote interview.
Okay. So, I am in Tyler. I live in Tyler. However, I am currently employed with Westlake Chemical in Longview, Texas. Took the day off to do this. You're welcome, Kevin.
Thank you.
Yeah. Sarah Niffen actually got me here, so thank you, Sarah. I have been in HR now for 22 years. I didn't intend on going into HR. It kind of found me. And I have enjoyed it ever since. I've primarily worked in manufacturing and distribution. However, I've also done contract gigs at a large church in Tyler. I have also done consulting with a firm out of Houston post-COVID, and then found my way to Westlake. So pretty happy with that. I am SHRM certified. I am, what else am I, Kevin? I'm also credentialed in people analytics and total rewards, and a SHRM people manager qualified individual. So I've never specialized in one area of HR. I have always kind of done it all. I know some folks that specialize in recruiting, some in compensation, total rewards. I've always just done it all, and I've always liked it that way. So I can assure you, I do not have a black belt in HR. I am still learning every day, and I'm grateful for that because it continues to change and people change. And so that's how you continue to learn. But I have learned some things along the way. I've got my teeth kicked in along the way and prayed a lot along the way, but have loved every minute of it. And if there is just one thing I can say to any or all of you that will help you I will consider today to be a success.
Excellent. Thank you, Holly. And a couple of just quick housekeeping I forgot. So the flow, this is for everybody. The flow is I'll do a little interview here with Holly. We can hear her journey and lessons learned. We'll do that for 30 or 40 minutes, and then we'll leave the balance of the time for Q&A. So as you have questions, please think about them, and then there's going to be time to either ask her directly or you can send a chat and I can read it out. So that's kind of the flow. And if you can, and everyone is, I believe, just keep your microphones on mute throughout the interview just for clear audio. Okay, so Holly, you mentioned that you didn't necessarily choose HR, it chose you. So I know it was just a couple of years ago, but go back, you finished college and what happened? Where'd your career start?
Well, actually, it started in healthcare. I spent about 12 years in healthcare, um, in operations. And then, because of my husband, of course, that's the reason, moved to Marshall, Texas, and went to work for a privately owned company in Marshall, also in operations. During the course, about a year and a half in, George W. Bush signed some updates to the Fair Labor Standards Act. I happened to be reading about it, did some additional research, knew it was coming. This was in 2004. The changes were going to be made in 2005. I kind of did an executive summary for our owners, only just to say, hey, this is coming, just so you know. And they said, great, you're going to be in HR.
Okay.
Okay, let's do it. So I kind of dove in. My first stop was SHRM, or the Society of Human Resource Management. Became a member and downloaded everything about SHRM and HR that I could. And it just kind of went from there. I spent 13 years at that company until we moved to Tyler.
Okay.
And spent a few years at a distribution center in Jacksonville where I loved to be, and then COVID hit.
Okay, let's go back to that 13 years at that private company. You started in operations. You took the initiative to help the leadership be aware of changes, and they said, "Okay, you've got a new job." So, um, what was if you can think about it in these terms, initially, what were your first goals as that HR leader? What value were you trying to bring the organization, or what value were those leaders asking you to bring the organization?
Those leaders were not asking me to bring anything, because that company, being privately owned, grew very quickly.
Okay.
And coming from healthcare, in doctor's offices and in a hospital in Longview, what I knew I needed to bring to that company was clarity and stability.
Okay.
There was no employee manual. There was no dress code. There was no, the wage and hour were kind of out of whack. So I knew that we had to get some stability, right? If people needed to know what to wear, by golly, let's do a dress code. Let's write a handbook, and let's define what our absenteeism policy is, and let's have some training on harassment and diversity and all the good things. That company did not have it because it had grown so quickly, and because of my prior experience in a more established organization, I knew what it was missing.
That's fascinating. So a lot of the work I do, Holly, with leaders, executive teams, is helping them navigate the growth of their organization. And you don't know what you don't know. And that's such a unique perspective there. I know the answer. I think we all know the answer, but it's good to hear it. Why, why are those policies and those standards so important for an organization to have?
Two primary reasons, in my opinion. Number one, it gives the employees direction. So
Okay.
if you need to understand what the company feels or has about their absenteeism policy, you have a clear guide. that also gives the company side the ability to say, okay, you have violated this, and this is going to cause X, Y, and Z.
Mhm.
It also helps with HR that there are consistent practices. A company
Mhm.
that doesn't have solid policies and treats employees differently, because only, even if it's completely innocent in that, oh, I forgot I let Sarah do this, and now I'm not letting Josh do this. That can cause some legal issues very quickly,
Mhm.
especially with different jobs or same jobs, different races, different genders, the whole nine. So it helps from a legal perspective as well.
I would think culture as well.
It can. Um, it is though. It is just, in my opinion, it is only a small part of the culture. It is not a living part of the culture at all. It is just a guideline.
What, the consistency? I'm thinking that consistency,
Oh,
and
consistency.
yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, consistency and predictability help with morale.
Oh,
Now,
yeah.
everybody might not like the rules, but if we're consistent in how we execute, it keeps a certain level of justice present.
Well, I've never considered it justice, but yeah, I think you're right. I never thought about justice that way. So, yeah, it's just there's clear expectations.
Mhm.
There's no confusion. If you do X, Y will happen.
Mhm.
And the reality is, most places you go, there's going to be rules. Even if you go to the grocery store, they expect you to wear a shirt and shoes. Now, pants, I guess, are optional because I've never seen pants required as going into a grocery store. But
Yeah, they
shirt,
just say shoes and shirt, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
So I've never tried going without pants, but um, just the thought.
They should consult with you, these grocery
Right.
stores. Um, okay, so you got going in your HR role. Assumptions are dangerous, but I'm going to make one. I'm going to assume when they tapped you on the shoulder and said, "Okay, you're HR now," you were a department of one early on, or no?
No, so the primary business again was in Marshall, but in Scottsdale, we had a separate candle making company that had about 100 employees, and I had a generalist there.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
right.
Okay.
So, a total employee base was about 350.
Mhm.
So she kind of handled employees over there, and I handled them at the main facility.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, where I wanted to go with that is, see, that's why you don't make assumptions. Where I wanted to go with that is, tell me your own personal journey in leadership itself. Because it's one thing to know HR and be able to do your thing sitting in the HR seat. It's another thing to be able to lead an HR department with other people in it. So tell us your journey in managing others.
So, you know, you had mentioned something about this when you and I first talked about this webinar. And I think what most in HR understand is that you may have 1 to 10 employees in the HR department, but you are actually leading that entire company because you have to lead by example every day.
Hmm.
Um, that leadership journey was interesting. As I mentioned, being coming from healthcare in a more structured and uh, long-term organization, I saw a lot of different leadership types, right? And then
Hmm.
going into a privately owned company, where a lot of the leaders there had been promoted to leadership positions because they did a good job, not because they were good leaders, because they did a good job. Uh,
Right.
there were there were just problems everywhere. And my leadership journey started with we all need leadership training.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
hands down. Um,
And I didn't tell her to say that, y'all. I did not tell her to say that.
Well, in a privately owned company, especially in a small town like Marshall, it's easy to start a business and, oh, wow, it's booming. I need help. Let me call my friends who I've lived and worked with for generations, and get them in here. And it just sneaks up on you, right? Um, no one tells you when you're growing up how to lead. I mean, it's more prevalent in today's society, but back then, no one tells you how to lead. You try to just do the best you can, but you find leaders, for example, that are really good leaders, except if there's a discipline issue, then they don't want to deal with it.
Okay.
That's when they call HR. They don't want to do performance reviews because they don't know how to write them. And so we all needed leadership training. I needed to learn how to talk with those people that were just really messing it up. Because Sarah, of everyone on this, I think on this call, Sarah can tell you I am incredibly honest and blunt sometimes. And that's something that I've had to work on in my own leadership journey. It's almost like you identify things in others that you don't like, and then you look in the mirror and go, you know what? I don't like that about myself either as a leader. So I need to work on that. So there's been a lot of different steps, and I continue to learn. I continue to read. I continue to go to classes, and thankfully my current organization has outstanding resources for continued education.
Excellent. Well, we appreciate the candidness and the honesty. What maybe are some lessons you learned as a leader? Where'd you bump your head along the way that have stuck with you to say, you know what, from now on, this is how I'm doing that, or this is the kind of leader I want to be?
So this may be hard to hear from privately owned organizations if there are any on the call. But in HR, or even more so as leaders, you can be friendly with your employees, but remember, and hear me out before you make judgments, but you can't necessarily be friends. And because you may have to terminate that employee one day by no fault of their own. If you decide to grow one side of the business and close another side, you may have to terminate their employment. And if you were friends, that's going to ruin your friendship. That doesn't mean you can't be friendly and you can't have a great relationship. It just means you have to keep the personal out of business. That was one thing, especially from going from an operations role to an HR role, and I had made work friends.
Yeah.
Where I bumped my head a lot too is that I tend to have, and I'm not going to say the letters, but the phrase of that resting face of
You're focused. You're
I'm
focused.
focused.
Yeah,
So,
you're focused.
It was during that time when I worked for that organization that I did have my twins, and there were days I didn't know that I was going to be able to stay awake, right? But during that time, when you're thinking, I have to get this payroll done, I also have to begin open enrollment. I've got to get the documents together. I'm negotiating the contracts. I'm doing the things, but I'm also knowing I've got to get out of here by 5:30 so I can pick up the kids. I've got to go home and cook and all the things, right? And so I have this look on my face of focus. Yes, that is the word,
Right.
focus. Sarah, you know that look. That look on me. Here's the thing. What I learned was that people would ask me, employees and managers would ask me, what's wrong? Why are you angry? I'm not. I'm just thinking, right? But what it made me realize was that people are always looking at leaders.
Yep.
What is their mood like? Are they in a good mood? Are they in a bad mood? Are they angry? Are they after someone? Is something not going right? And if something isn't going right, are they going to have my job? Am I dressed? Everyone is looking all the time.
Yeah.
And so the best thing that I learned, and that I also think helped me as a parent, is I believe that strong leadership, you have to be the example every day of what you expect in others.
Mm-hmm.
That's their behavior. That is their work ethic. That is their personal characteristics. That is their emotional intelligence. You have to be what you want others to be.
Mm-hmm.
If I, personal note, but how it worked into my leadership was that I made it a point, my husband and I made it a point never to say any foul language around my children.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, my children don't say foul language that I'm aware of. Okay. But I have seen other kids that do. And that was important to me because I didn't want a foul mouth speaking child.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they learn by example. Children learn by example. Guess what? Employees do as well.
Mm-hmm.
If a leader is screaming and yelling at employees and coming across the table, employees believe they can treat other employees like that as well.
Exactly.
So leading by example is something I learned very early on.
That's great, Holly. I'm gonna ask you one more question, and then we'll move off from this subject. In the work that I do, if a leader is at this level, whatever level X is, that could be a decent level, it could be a great level, it could be at a deficit. And if they want to go from here to here, from X to Y, there are many things involved, but one of the most fundamental things is they have to be willing to make changes or adjustments within themselves. And that can be very difficult. And that's why a lot of leaders get stuck. What what was a fundamental adjustment or change you feel like you had to make over the last 20 years?
Definitely early in my HR career, it was taking, and this was a really long time ago, right? I think before the buzzword of emotional intelligence, but taking my feelings off my sleeve.
Okay.
Um, you know, my emotions and what I'm feeling do not equate to what everyone else should be doing. If I'm in a bad mood, I'm not feeling well, or I didn't get a lot of sleep last night because I have twins, doesn't mean you should tippy toe around me.
That's good.
Right.
Good.
We are all at work to do a job and to help the company be successful and meet those goals and whatever it may be. But we've got to keep our emotions out of it. This is not about us. This is about the organization. This is about your coworkers and your team, and everyone who is involved in helping the company be successful.
That's
Keep your
great.
emotions out of it.
That's great. That's great. A lot of leaders need to hear and be reminded that it's not about you. It's not
Yeah.
about you. You
Where's
know,
Dr. Phil? Wasn't that
was it?
his saying? Yeah. It's not about you. Yeah,
Okay.
that was a
Okay.
Dr. Phil thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. Let me look at my notes. Let's see. Okay. Uh, Tell us, how has the HR environment changed over the last several years, over the last decade or so? How's
Yeah.
the
So,
HR field changed?
HR started out as the personnel department,
Okay.
right?
Define
Uh,
that. Define
yeah.
that.
The personnel department is hiring people, doing their paperwork, doing their I-9, making, because back in the
Okay.
day, I-9s were paper I-9s. There was no E-Verify. That was making sure that they were set up in payroll and that you had their file set up. So you had the regular file and then you had the confidential file. Those had to be separate, right? You changed, people's address, and you changed their benefits when they got married and added a dependent. It was purely transactional. I I believe there was a major shift around COVID. Because we all had to go home. And then, at least from my perspective, I had to emotionally help a lot of employees.
Okay.
Just listening to them, assuring them that everything was going to be okay, helping them get unemployment in some cases, pointing them in the right direction. But then it was also starting back up after COVID. It was being more strategic. This is the business. This is where we need to get to. We need to, what workforce do we need? What's available? What skills do we need? What do we need to train for? What are we going to need? Not just immediately, but in a year and in 2 years. How is our market going to look like? And what are our competitors? And getting ready for that strategic future. So that's when I believe that a lot of shift happened, because we were all taken by surprise with COVID and what's happened. Now, and I still believe that, because industry experts now are saying with HR that it is data driven and you have to be strategic about everything. I think where, in my opinion, that has lacked a little bit is that it's not just strategic about meeting the goals of the business, it's about the enterprise as a whole. Are we looking not only internally, but are we looking externally? Are we looking at our market? What is our market? Just and I'm not going to get into detail with this, but just for example, the conflict that's going on with Iran and how that is affecting our economy. That economy is affecting our employees because of the cost of things. Are we looking at that? Are we looking at the laws and precedent that has been changed as of late? And how does that affect how we are managing our workforce and what we're looking for in the future? So a lot of it's just not HR helping the company meet their goals. It is HR being completely about the enterprise now and in the future and looking outside of it to help it grow.
Nice. Much more of a strategic partner and in some ways a strategic advisor.
Right.
Now, I think in an ideal world that whether the HR role is a part of the executive team or it's at one level below, okay, they're both, right? There are environments where it's both. And it could even be further down in the org chart than that. But wherever HR sits on the org chart, there are some environments where top leadership views HR, like you just said, they view that role as a very important strategic partner on one end of the scale or spectrum. On the other end, they want to relegate HR to that personnel at best, right, role. What encouragement do you have for those in the latter category? One, have you experienced that in your own journey? And then number two, whether you have or haven't, how do you encourage HR professionals in that environment?
So have I experienced that in my own journey? Yes, I have. And
did you work there for like 5 weeks and then you were gone?
13 years. Yeah. What my advice would be is regardless of where you're at, if your growth exceeds the organization and their expectations of HR, then it's time to find somewhere else that you can grow further. Am I encouraging anyone to quit? Absolutely not. You have to look at your situation, what your needs are, and are they being provided for, and your future. So yes, today, well, let me back up. Before I started in HR, and a login to a computer system I had. My login was future CEO. Okay, that tells you who I was when I was in my 20s,
Okay. Okay.
right? When my kids came along, that completely changed.
Okay.
Totally changed. My focus completely shifted, which I never had. I never had thought that that would have happened, but it changed. And so things change over time, and
Okay.
you have to adjust. If where you're at wants you to be either, the chief HR or a generalist, whatever fits where you're at in life and whatever you can contribute and grow with is what I
Hmm.
would suggest you do.
Hmm. And jog my memory on this, Holly. I think when we were prepping, I know you just said kind of there, it's serious, but it was a joke about you having your login as future CEO. You were pursuing leadership, correct or no?
So I don't have an HR degree. I have a business degree.
Okay.
And what I found that I was really good at with business is I'm good at process improvement. I'm good at correcting issues. I'm good at identifying issues and finding solutions. Um, so process improvement is what I'm really good at. And that's how I ended up moving from place to place when I was in a business operations type role. And I just couldn't get enough. I just kept going for more. Um, HR just stuck.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I typically get along with people pretty well.
Hmm.
And that probably helped me in the HR role. Uh,
Yep.
but HR just stuck. So yes, I am a business person at heart, but it also helps me in my HR role because it does help with understanding the business as a whole. I understand about operations, I understand about finance and accounting and how all things flow together and supply and demand and market conditions and supply chain and all the things. Well, not all the things, but um, that helps me identify who we need in our workforce, what skills we need, what's going away with AI, and how maybe we can repurpose. We don't, our first goal is not to just get rid of people, but looking at the big picture and also scaling it down and looking at the intricate parts.
Hmm. Hmm. How do you keep yourself fresh in your role?
Kevin, sometimes I don't feel very fresh. I'm, I'm telling you sometimes. So I read a lot. I keep up with our industry leaders. As I mentioned, my current company has a great training system. In fact, one of my employees in my department is a senior training specialist, and that's all she does because the company is so focused on training. But I go to different places. I listen to people. Um, you know, going to, for example, our SHRM meetings that we have at Express, I love to hear other people talk about their own experiences. So it's just staying on top of things, right? We've had a lot of changes in wage and hour. We've had changes in a lot of our EEOC type. I'm being very delicate. Um, so just keeping up with all the things that are changing and then making adjustments where we need to. So
Hmm. What, you said it's stuck, HR stuck, and your people skills, your relational skills have helped. What else has kept you in the HR world?
um, that's a great question that I don't think I was prepared for. It's kind of like one time I was asked on an interview, describe your type of humor. How do you do that? I still haven't figured
Funny,
that out.
funny humor?
Yeah, no, like,
No, I know, I'm joking.
I mean, I still can't figure that out. Um, what has kept me in HR? I'm good at it. People trust me, and they trust
Mhm.
me because I take time to get to know the employees. Um, I I will listen to them and I will keep their confidence, but I will also um, very respectfully tell them when they're stepping out of line. Being that honest and direct and always there for them. I like that people trust me, I guess. I'd never
Yeah.
thought about that.
Well, what I'm hearing you say, among other things, is, and we teach on this in leadership, for our job satisfaction to be high, one of the components, one of the key ingredients to job satisfaction is we feel that we're actually effective at what we do. It kind of in the literature is called mastery. Um, and that's what I'm hearing you describe is you feel like you're effective at it. Like you're a screwdriver and you're screwing in those screws and it's like you get the job done. It's a hand in a glove. It's almost like you were created for that spot because you're effective at it.
Well, I
And
didn't
that's,
want to say that. I didn't want to say I was good at my job, Kevin, but you just said it for me. Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. I'll go back to that. I'm going back to that black belt statement. So, what for you? Well, let me say this. Sometimes it's easy to see it objectively. Let's say you were auditing a company, and what would you be looking for to determine whether an HR generalist or an HR manager was effective in their role? What kind of things would you be looking for?
So I have done a few audits when I was consulting, and to put to the side, honestly, the first thing I look at in a company um, is are they compliant with the law?
Okay.
Right. We got to fix those first, right? But if, in doing employee interviews, can you talk to your HR? Do you trust your HR? Is your HR on Facebook that you're friends with and then downing employees that you work with or
Wow.
former employees that you work with? I can't believe Kevin just did this. I had to fire him. That's the kind of stuff that people don't trust. So it would be for me, I would need to talk to employees, right?
Nice. Nice.
And if that was a complaint that they did not trust their HR team, um, there would either have to be a change in regimen or a whole lot of training very quickly.
Hmm. So, okay. Um, and if that's the totality of the answer, that's fine, but I want to give you a space to elaborate. So, if you were to come in and assess, you'd say, okay, first, are they obeying the law? Number two, do employees feel that they can access, communicate with, and trust the department? Anything else?
Probably. You didn't prep me for this, Kevin.
I didn't. I didn't. How about this? I see this in organizations. How about the HR's ability to communicate throughout the organization?
Absolutely. And communication is an interesting thing. When I worked in Marshall and in Jacksonville in warehouse and manufacturing and distribution, I communicated with the employees much differently than who I am communicating with now, which 99% of the employees I work with now are white collar, all the way up to PhDs. And they talk differently and think differently than someone working in other positions, maybe in blue collar positions. So it's about communication. But I'd also told you in our discussions, a lot of mine is humor, right? If people feel relaxed around you, they're going to talk to you more. They're going to open up a little bit more. Because I tell employees if there is a problem, I can't even attempt to try to understand it or fix it unless you talk to me and let me know what it is.
Hmm.
Uh, so absolutely, they have to trust me before I trust them.
Hmm.
If they don't trust me, they're not going to tell me anything. So
Right.
absolutely. And if I talk to, um, you know, one person, I'm not going to talk to my 10-year-old child the same way I talk to my 18-year-old child. I'm not equating employees to
Right. Right.
children. I'm saying that there are different levels and you have to speak differently and hear differently.
Hmm. Hmm. Let me ask this. While no HR department should take or tolerate abuse, is it true that you've got to have some thick skin to be in your role?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And why
Uh,
is that?
I'll tell you, if an employee is found doing drugs in the bathroom and
Holly, Holly, you weren't supposed to talk about that.
right, it happens. And it's reported, it's verified, and I have to terminate that employee. Who who is the employee going to be mad at?
Right,
Not themselves.
right.
They're not going to be mad at their supervisor or even the person that caught them in the bathroom. They're going to be mad at me because I'm the one pulling the trigger.
Uh-huh.
I don't fire people. People typically fire themselves,
Right.
right? And I've had some bad experiences. People showing up at my house, calling all hours of the night, some threats, and so on and so forth. But in the end, I know what the work that I'm doing um, is approved by my higher power and the company. I'm doing the right thing for the company and the fellow employees. And if that takes my rear end getting chewed out, so be it.
You've learned, were you always good at not taking it personally, or is that something you had to learn?
So I've always been good about that for a really long time, but it was only after I took, as I mentioned earlier, my emotions off my
Good,
shoulder,
good.
right? You know, we get blamed. We as an HR get blamed for a lot of things. Why did this specific uh, group get a increase in wages and we didn't? Well, it's HR's fault. Well, not
Right,
exactly. There's a whole lot
right,
to it, but
right, right,
let me explain to you in the big picture how this works, right? We're losing this group to turnover, and we need to attract better. We need to do these things. Nonetheless, you're also considered the policy police,
right.
right? I don't make the laws; I just enforce them.
Hmm.
But yes, you do have to have thick skin, and um, there has been a few times where some things have bothered me, but I just have to chew on it for a little bit, and typically I can get through it.
Good, Holly. Well, it's obvious that you are a strong person. You've learned a lot. I know you've obviously demonstrated phenomenal resilience, and I hope that your career has rewarded you with that diligence and the investment you've put in. And something that the first word I have in my notes as I heard your story is the word initiative. Going back to when you were in operations, you took the initiative to learn that law in 2004, 2005. And that's something I see people that succeed. There's always excuses and there's always reasons why we can quit or say it's hard or it's my boss, it's the company, it's my role, it's the economy, it's my mom, it's my spouse. I think people that succeed figure it out. They
Yeah,
keep showing up and they figure it out and they're willing to make those adjustments. And you're an embodiment of that. So good job, Holly. And it's
thank you.
it's it's an honor to have you on here. So I'll give you the last word, and I'll tee that up for you. But after Holly kind of gives this last word, I want to open it up to the group in our balance of time with any questions. So again, you can unmute yourself and ask Holly. Be sure to unmute yourself, or we won't be able to hear you. And sometimes we can forget, or send it through the chat. But Holly, the last thing here I'll leave is just what word of encouragement do you have? What advice, wisdom, or just encouragement to the folks on the webinar today?
Keep going. Don't don't give up. And if you think, just like you said, it's my boss's fault. I hate this place. Um, it's all wrong. Don't give up. Talk to a trusted advisor. Talk to friends. I know I've had a talk or two with a friend here on this call about some things. Um, and she helped me out tremendously. The thing is, everyone is ultimately responsible for their lives. And you have to be able to understand that not everyone's going to bend to your will. And so do everything that you can, do your due diligence, and then just keep going. Don't give up. Whatever that looks like, don't give up.
Excellent. All right. Questions for Holly. This is a great opportunity to pick the brain of a very experienced professional.
Yay.
They're letting you off easy.
Nice.
Holly, you mentioned that you were going to use, everybody's talking about AI today, right? And you didn't want to use, the threat of AI makes everyone think, oh my God, I'm going to lose my job.
Right.
How have you as an organization used AI in a way that's non-threatening to your employee base, but offered some, efficiencies and help?
Right. So my organization actually, we are using it. Remember, we make chemicals. Okay. We are a chemical company, and we have a lot of engineers that work for us. And so in that aspect, they've used a lot of AI to help, their operational types of work that they have to do to make things more safe. That's the number one thing, is make sure everything is safe, make sure that the equipment and plants are running at their best. What we do in HR is we're trying to use AI as more of to make more routine tasks off that transactional plate that I had mentioned. We're really trying to sharpen up our HRIS systems to make sure that things maybe be going in the background where employees aren't so challenged using our HRIS system, which they are right now. Same thing with us. How can we be more efficient? How can we put things in a AI box so that we're not spending a lot of time doing transactional work? We can do actually more human work that is needed.
Nice. Good question, Gene.
I want to
Josh.
get
Question.
the AI one out there before someone else did. Go ahead, Josh.
I don't know exactly how to ask it, but
Just say it, man.
okay. So from when you started in HR to today, the workforce we're in, a lot of new generation, Gen Z, millennial. Is there a difference from how you engaged with employees then to now? And if so, what does that look like?
Okay, so I engage with employees differently every day. I have employees that have 40 years plus tenure at my current plant. Okay. And I had to explain to someone the other day what a Karen was. You know what I'm saying? Okay. That happens every day. Generational differences, how you speak to people, what you hear, that happens every day in my workforce. And it has in every job that I've ever worked on, and not just generational, but also cultural, speaking different languages. And I don't mean, when I say different languages, I mean different. I mean, forgive me, y'all, for saying this, but different types of hick, because in East Texas, we all speak some type of hick, right? And in the workplace, we've tried to be more professional and get better at it, right? But I have had to be a mediator between two people who were just not communicating because of those generational differences. Work ethic is, and I could go on for an entire afternoon about generational differences, but that is one thing I train our leadership on is, what my 75-year-old superintendent who has been at the plant for 40 years. What he thinks work looks like is much different than the 24-year-old engineer that is just coming out of college, that has never looked at a health plan, doesn't understand, is still on his parents' insurance, still lives at home, and wants to leave at 5 o'clock, not 5:01, right? So it is, I'm telling you, this could be a whole afternoon of discussion. But all that to say, it is connecting these two people so that they are able to work together and be successful individually and together as a team, because ultimately that is the goal. And sometimes it takes sitting both people down and saying, okay, John, you're saying this, and Anthony, you're saying this. Let's see if we can't come to the middle, and let me help you where you can both hear one another. So it is consistent training and consistent talking to people. I cannot begin to tell you. I think you recruiters know that better than anyone. I would guarantee you, Sarah, and the other fellow that I don't remember his name, I apologize, that are recruiters, that as soon as you pick up the phone and say hello to a candidate, you know exactly what you are in for, just with the first sentence with that candidate. Am I wrong?
Girl, yes.
Yeah. It just takes practice and patience and understanding.
Holly, I often have to ask them what they're talking about when they send little memes across, because I'm like, I'm not sure. I'm like, I have to look that word up. I don't,
Right.
something yesterday about a bison eating somebody. I didn't know what that was. So they had to explain it to me. So it happens every day.
Right. I
Any
love
other
it.
any other questions for Holly?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
I think any organization that's been around for a minute kind of gets these hard ground ruts that we get stuck in. And HR tends to get stuck in ruts because that's how you're seen. You're seen as the paper pusher. You're seen as the one that only takes applications all day. Any suggestions on ways to kind of break that cycle as an HR professional?
So yes, absolutely. So my suggestion is this. You see an area that could improve. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying it's bad, but you see an area that could improve. And you know what skills you have in your toolbox to help get that done. The thing is, what I found with, for example, the owners of that privately owned company that I was working at, I had to give them information that showed them how it was going to either save them money, make them more money, or get them compliant within the law, or help them support their goals, right? If you do that, right, you may be able to then start a whole new process, procedure, new area that is going to help encourage growth, that maybe the folks out there won't think of you as a paper pusher. Wow, Christy really thought this through. I had no idea she had these tools in her toolbox, right? So you almost have to make a business case of why it's gonna benefit the company, and the goals that you're all working toward.
Thank you.
And I will be glad to talk with you one-on-one if that is ever the case, and you'd like to just talk through it. Your hair looks amazing, by the way.
That's awesome. Great question, Chrissy. And I think that, Holly, I'll just add 2 cents to that, and you either affirm it or say no, Kevin, and change it. But I think if I'm going to pitch something to leadership, I've got to be sure that I frame it in such a way that it scratches an itch that they have, not that I have. Right? It can be my pet thing that I think is so important, but they don't give 2 cents about. It's not going to move the needle, right? So we've got to learn to frame it in a way that it speaks to what they think is important. Is that right?
Exactly. Absolutely. But in order to know that, it helps to have those leaders be able to communicate to you what they are, what they're looking for, what their goals are, be open and transparent about what we're working toward. What do we want? What do we need? And then support those employees so that those employees feel safe and have the tools they need to make those suggestions and say, yeah, this will really help move that needle. Let me present it to you.
Nice. Good question, Christy. We've got another minute or so. Anybody else? I think to ask Holly, normally it's about a $1,500 just access fee to you, correct? Normally? No?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
We're getting questions for free here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I can also clean the bathroom after a minor fire and there's fire extinguisher all over the walls. I can do that too.
Nice. Holly, thank you so much for putting the preparation, taking time to do this. We really appreciate it. I know everyone that knows you thinks so highly of you, and you're a great icon in the profession. And so thank you. Just a great symbol. You're a great symbol of what it means to be a professional HR leader. And we appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you, Kevin.
So to wrap up with some housekeeping, I actually did remember to record this, and so we'll edit it and we'll send out the recording to everyone, of course, that was here, and I know some that wanted to be here and weren't able to make it. Also, we put together like a summary of Holly's key insights. So we'll put that document together and send it out because we truly want this to be educational and valuable. So look for those resources. And as always, Jacob, Sarah, and Josh with the specialized recruiting group can help with any of your recruiting needs, and we can help with strategic planning and leadership development at Express Pros Training. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Holly.